For whom the bell tolls, YouTube. What the crap's going on? Heir of Carthage here. Yes, yes. Coming to you with some Skaven fight battles. They're gonna actually be taking on the Greenskins. Whoa! What happened? Where did my... Seriously? What's going on? I clicked the wrong button right there, but, like, what happened to the Screaming Bell? Is it just me or did it, like, disappear into the hole? Holy mackerel. Some kind of strange map glitch right there. Do you guys... Look at that! CA, please. Look at that! Coming up out of the ground. That's crazy. Anyway, let me introduce you to the Skaven army. And the Skavens are fighting the Greenskins, and they're attempting to do it with an infantry line. Most of you think that that would just be premeditated suicide, and for the most part, you're probably right. Let's take a look at this build and see what might set this apart from a normal Skaven build trying to go toe-to-toe with the Greenskins on infantry. It's just Skaven slaves up front, which is a great pick because you can absorb charges, and if your opponent's really crafty with the Greenskins, they're going to use that wall while they're still on the charge to get all that extra charge speed and damage, along with the extra attack, and they will do tremendous damage on the charge. A lot of players, again, choose to use WA after the melee is started, and this is a mistake in my opinion. I'll do some testing and try and prove it one way or the other. There are several units of Storm Vermin with halberds. There's one Warp Fire Thrower, and there's a Plague Monk on either flank, and then out supporting each infantry flank is a Warlock Engineer. In the middle is a Grey Seer on a Screaming Bell. The Screaming Bell is good anti-infantry. Yeah, this... I don't know why people use that magic missile ability on Wurzag. It's pretty worthless. Both Warlock Engineers have Warp Lightning, and they also have this right here, a Warpstone Armor. You can see the radius of effect it has there. It's a 40-meter radius. It's pretty good size. If they're in melee, it's basically leeching the life out of units within that, of the enemy, and that's going to be great. It's basically like having a Mortis engine, a little Skaven-y rat Mortis engine. There's also a Storm Vermin with a Sword and Shield on either flank, and here's your two Storm Vermin with the halberds. So yes, this is a straight-up infantry smash type tactic, and the Skaven Grey Seer. Let me see if I can get the Grey Seer. So the Grey Seer here, let's see, got Pestilent Breath, Vermintide, which is going to spawn Clan Rats, the Warp Storm Scroll in case there's a flyer, and then Arcane Conduit. So basically the Warlock Engineers can throw down a lot of Warp Lightning. I think these ones are a little bit premature. The Greenskin player does a good job of dodging it. Usually better to just wait on those until a unit's engaged. Now, the Warp Fire Thrower I think is a good pick versus Greenskins potentially too, but deploying in the woods will make it almost entirely ineffective. It's gonna, all of the shots from it will just hit trees. So let's kind of show you how the deployment's gonna work. Wurzag's just kind of chilling back, and then there's a couple of cavalry units here for the Greenskins. We got the Broken Tusk Mob and a Wolf Rider making its way around the flank. There are 4 Black Orcs in the Greenskin infantry, along with some Goblin units, a Big Boss, Rusty Arrows, and a couple of Savage Orc Biggins. So a huge infantry line here for the Greenskins, basically with 6 different elite infantry units, 4 of which are heavily armored and can dish heavy armor piercing damage. So you can see that the Skaven slaves are used to absorb the charge, and then he's going to commit his infantry behind, so good play. He's now going to start using his Warp Lightning, and the Greenskin player you can see activates WA rather late into this, rather late. These units here will get the benefit of the extra charge, but the rest of them did not. The Warlock Engineers are not engaged in melee just yet, so their Warpstone Armor is not having an impact at the moment, and the Grey Seer is hanging back. The Warp Fire Thrower doesn't have a good angle. If it were to come around and maybe get an angle from here looking in, it might be able to do some damage, but right now it doesn't have an angle. There's a Gobbo Big Boss headed this way, and then here comes Wurzag as well. Another very nice Warp Lightning coming. So again, used against the blobbed up units, the Warp Lightning is quite effective. You can see the Skaven already taken the worst of this infantry engagement, but here where the Warlock Engineer engages, you can see the Greenskin units. You can see that it's having an impact on them. It's draining their hit points, and it's helping to do so rather quickly. The Grey Seer is going to come up the center. This is also a good anti-infantry unit. The only thing you got to be careful of is if your opponent has good anti-large troops and they get a hold of it. If they do, it's going to die relatively quick because it is really meant to be against infantry blobs. These Goblin Wolf Riders are causing a lot of grief. The Broken Tusk Mob got broken up by some Rat Ogres and Skaven Slave Spears, but here this Wolf Rider is going to get into the Warp Fire Throw, which is not a great situation for the Skaven. And again, you can see their infantry is taking a pretty savage beating. The Warlock Engineer, though, is engaged in combat now, but he is getting trashed by Black Orcs. So his ability is making a difference. It's just not going to last long. Now, over here, where the Warlock Engineer has a slightly better position in melee, he's not just getting absolutely spanked by Greenskin Infantry. So he's staying in combat for a long time with all his health and draining a ton of Greenskin health. So where you engage your Warlock Engineer to make use of that Warpstone armor makes a big difference. If there's a weaker infantry unit nearby, better ones, that's how you would want to play it. Now this is interesting. Effigy to Get gets used on the Rat Ogres instead of the Grey Seer, which is a very strange move indeed. So I don't know if that was a misclick or purposeful from the Greenskins, but it was a mistake nonetheless. And now the Skaven has brought forward its Storm Vermin with Halberd reserves because everything else has gotten beat down by the Greenskins. Again, on this flank, the Warlock Engineer has pulled a lot of hit points out of these enemy units, and you can see it's making a huge difference. But on this side, the Warlock Engineer got routed. He's going to regroup with some Skaven Slave Spears, and they'll have a target here. They can try and take down this Goblin Spear unit. Yeah, so I mean, so far the Skaven are holding. They're losing, but they've held their ground. Question is whether they can even it out now, because the Greenskins are kind of making a second push to take everything out. Looks like Wurzag now running away from Rat Ogres. Not a fight that he wants, apparently. Those Rat Ogres might have an opportunity to take out the Rusty Arrows, and that's what it looks like they're going to do. So that's probably a good call, not leaving the Rusty Arrows there to kill your Grey Seer. Look at this Warlock Engineer over here. He's hardly taken any damage, and he is just eating away at this Black Orc and the Savage Biggin. So this flank has done really well because of the way that Warlock Engineer was engaged, and I want you all to take note of that. If you can get your Warlock Engineer engaged in a melee where he's not going to die quickly, he can do a ton of damage to the units around him. The Storm Vermin over here are holding because the Black Orcs are now tired, but here's an Here We Go. There's other support, but this continual use of Warp Lightning against infantry blobs is a nice play. These Rat Ogres finished off the cavalry, and they can now be engaged into combat. It looks like they're going to try and chase down the Goblin Big Boss, who is really putting a beating on the Grey Seer. And the Grey Seer gets a pretty good breath attack right there across the Greenskin infantry. Pretty good, not perfect. You see the Skaven still struggling to put down this Greenskin infantry, who just got another wah. The Grey Seer is in pretty tough shape there, but those Rat Ogres ought to help. Right here, this surviving Warlock Engineer is going to be a huge deal in the late game. Again, keeping it melee, this Black Orc would otherwise just be destroying everything over here, but the Skaven managed to cut their way through it. 59 kills on the Warlock Engineer, probably is a combination of lightning and other stuff going on. It probably doesn't count kills if they come from the damage aura of the Warpstone armor. You can see the Gobbo Big Boss struggling to keep its leadership up. These Rat Ogres with all their armor piercing, just going to be a great unit to have here late game. And slowly but surely, the Greenskin infantry worn down. And this time, Effigy to Get lands on the character that it should. And that Effigy is going to be devastating. The Grey Seer is almost certainly going to die here. He's like stuck, like morphed into some trees. That's a pretty incredible position. Somehow the Grey Seer doesn't die, though. I guess... Wow, I would have thought the Effigy to Get would have killed him. The Grey Seer lives. And now that Warlock Engineer engaged in melee with the Warpstone armor, and you can see what little bit is left of the Greenskin infantry is going to get eaten away. There's a very healthy Storm Vermin with halberds here, and so the Greenskins did indeed get worn down by a Skaven infantry line. I like the combination of armor piercing with the Rat Ogres, but also as an anti-cavalry element, combining with Skaven Slave Spears, a very nice combination. The Warpstone armor is a great way to synergize with the otherwise inferior Skaven infantry. It helps do the extra damage for them. And then the Grey Seer, also a nice anti-infantry support. This army, I mean, can certainly have its weaknesses. It doesn't have any long range. It doesn't have any way to stop, like... I mean, it did have the scroll, Warpstorm scroll, where it could help slow down enemy flyers, but it's still going to be weak to enemy flyers. So I would say that if you don't feel too worried about that, and again, can the Greenskins, I mean, they can only field like an Orc War Boss on a Wyvern or Skullmuncha with Azag. So they don't have a lot of options for flyers. So I think it's a pretty safe pick against the Greenskins, but I mean, picking a flyer versus the Skaven can be a pretty safe pick too, so the Rusty Heirs are still alive, and they're moving back towards the fight, but at this point, the damage to the Greenskins appears to be at a critical point. Wurzag is being chased down by Rat Ogres, and then the Screaming Bell catches up, and not happy about that effigy from earlier. And this is how the Great Green Prophet is chased away, and the Skaven are not buying his heresy. They only listen to the Horned Rat. So they won't be taking any of that green preaching in their land. Look at Wurzag run. That kind of stuff may be listened to in the Badlands, but not here. Those Rat Ogres would be a great unit to give chase to Wurzag. I don't know if they can catch him, but they can certainly keep him out of this fight, essentially. And then that just means that the Rusty Heirs, which are hidden right now, the Skaven can't see them, and these few other regrouped units is about all that's left. And again, this Warlock Engineer has done tremendous work. Greenskins really don't have a way to win this one at this point, so I would assume that either the power bar is going to burn them out. Yep, there it goes. Some of their units shattered, so the power bar is just going to sour against him, and Wurzag is going to go on home to rethink his sermons. Good battle. I don't think either player played perfectly. There was the mistake with the Warp Fire throwers on the side of the Skaven, who is named the Horned Rat. I like it, like the Skaven support there. And then on the Greenskin side, the first effigy to get instead of being used on the Greyseer was used on the Rat Ogres, and you can see with what little life is left on the Greyseer that that other effigy to get probably would have been enough to have ensured that he died, making the Greenskins have an easier time, because the Skaven and the Greenskins both suffer with low leadership. So definitely not want to lose their lords. I love the combination of the Warpstone armor on the Warlock Engineers because it also incorporated Warp Lightning, which again is fantastic at busting up and causing extra damage to infantry blobs. So this really is a feasible potential build for the Skaven. They have some anti-large and speed in the form of these Rat Ogres. They don't have any long range. Again, that's going to be a weakness. They have a charge buffer with all these Skaven slaves and meat shields if they need it. But again, this is what's going to suck the life out of enemy infantry right here, so an interesting combination. This build, though, is also an anti-infantry powerhouse, and you can see that it got a lot of kills. A lot of those were probably Skaven slaves, but nonetheless, a lot of kills involved because these are very aggressive infantry units, and they can cause a lot of damage. I would recommend to Greenskin players to think about using that WA prior to entering combat, because it gives you an extra charge speed and charge bonus, and you can deal a tremendous amount of damage on the charge if it's used properly. You just have to be careful to make sure you're not wasting that on a meat shield. But even if you did use it on a meat shield, you could cut through the meat shield quickly so that your troops are less exhausted when they get to the main line for the enemy. But fun battle. If you all enjoyed this one, please make sure and leave a like, and also put a comment in there and thank these guys for submitting an awesome battle. I really appreciate that one coming in to me from the Horned Rat. That was great. It was fun to see your ideas. And to convince people that, you know, just because the Skaven infantry stink doesn't mean there's not ways to make them a little more competitive, and I think that that's a good example of that. And if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe, click that bell, you'll be the first to be notified when a new video goes up, and I hope to see you on that video. Heir of Carthage, signing out for now. I will be back soon.